Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm excited today, doing something a little bit different. This season 5, and I kind of haven't really strayed away from doing anything different. So I had an idea. I've got a friend doing something, and this is going to be a 2-part, but it's going to come together all as one. It's going to be kind of a before and after. So I'm excited to have him on the podcast today. Over 40 years of collecting. And he's decided he is going to set up at a show as a dealer. So we're going to get the before and the after. So I think it's going to be fun. I hope it's going to be fun, and I really hope you enjoy it. So let's welcome in. You know him on Instagram at Homer Sports Cards, all plural. Welcome, Jonathan Mazer. Jonathan, how you doing today?
Hey, Ken. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you doing this. I called you, we've been talking, we became friends in the hobby, right? I mean, we met through the hobby, even in Cleveland, the National this year, we met up and we did, Morton's, a nice steak dinner, but kind of getting the National going. And we've been conversing almost daily since. And I had this idea. I mean, I knew you were setting up at this show coming up this weekend, and all of a sudden I said, wouldn't it be great to bring you on and talk about, because you're asking me a lot of questions. I said, this is probably a lot of stuff that people, listening, and people, that listen to podcasts, this is where they go to get their information. And I thought this would be a great conversation that we can just record.
Yeah, well, this is a thrill for me. I've been listening to your podcast for the last few years. I remember going to your table and passing your table and speaking to you when we didn't know each other. And it was just, you were set up at a local card show, one of the Hofstra or Westchester County Center shows. So being here is great. And so it's a challenging weekend ahead, but it's going to be a new experience, hopping the aisle.
All right. So let's just roll to the beginning. Like, what made you decide I want to be a dealer. I want to be on that side of the table at an upcoming show. Where did that decision come from?
It's been festering over the last couple of years. I started opening packs of cards, baseball cards, in 1983. I went to my first show in 1985. Throughout high school, I was going to card shows in Florida when I was at Sawgrass Mills Mall or Don Carter's Lace. So card shows have always been part of what I like about the hobby the most. And then as an adult, the same thing. So quite frankly, my PC and overall inventory has really gotten out of control post-COVID. I mean, it's a hobby of mine. So whether it's eBay or whatnot, or in card shows, I have a lot. So I wanted to condense a little bit. And I also wanted to experience what it was like to be on the other side of the table. I've haggled with you before, and I'm sure it's going to happen to me this weekend, but really as an experience and see what it's like. Maybe I'll fail, maybe I'll succeed, but it's a hobby. It really doesn't truly matter. It's not my day job, but I thought, why not? Let's go for it. Give it a try.
So you're talking about your PC, right? That these are cards, but I know that you've been more recently planning ahead for this, right? To get a good amount of inventory. So you're out at shows. Do you sell to dealers on the other side of the table? Like, have you done that when you go out to shows? Do you trade? Do you kind of trade up? Do you sell? Or are you mostly just a collector that just goes and buys cards?
So I show up with the book bag and everyone assumes that there's cards in there. I can count on my one hand how many cards I've sold to dealers. Mm-hmm. I remember the deals. It's very infrequent. When I go to shows, I buy. I generally have been buying as a collector, but you picked it up the last year. And thinking this through, I was thinking about opportunities where down the line I might want to flip a card. Yeah. So that's sort of become more over the last 3 to 6 months as we've been preparing for the Northeast Expo, which is, we should say, at Chelsea Piers this weekend in Stamford, Connecticut. So thanks to George. So yeah, that's never really selling. It's always buying.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was kind of the point I was trying to make, because I know every time I see you at a show, right, I know you have the book bag, and the only thing you ever pull out is, hey, look at these pickups, right? Those are the only cards that ever come out. Nothing is ever for sale. I've never seen you pull cards out for sale. So thinking about getting ready to be a dealer and setting up, now you have a different mindset. So you're not just buying these cards, this handful of cards that are going to be in your PC. You're buying these cards thinking, I'm going to flip these cards at some point down the road.
Yeah, lots of football, lots of pro football.
Now, what is your, like, if somebody was to say, what is your PC? What is, when you go to these shows, and what do you usually buy? What is that?
So I'm a Dodger fan. I grew up in New York, but my dad was a Brooklyn Dodger fan. We were Dodger fans, so I carried that through. So for me, the iconic moment of my childhood was Kirk Gibson and the home run in the 1988 World Series. So all things Dodgers, but really a lot of Kirk. So recently I just overspent on eBay for a dual Kirk Gibson Eckersley card, dual sign. So those are kinds of things that I would never bring to the show and sell. I went to Indiana University, so Bobby Knight stuff, all my New York Rangers stuff. We're big Rangers fans in this house, so we watch every game. So we have a lot of Rangers cards. So that's kind of the core, but I run the spectrum, modern to vintage, a lot of Koufax to Mookie and Kershaw.
Nice. And this has always been your PC, like even when you started ripping packs back in. So you had mentioned football, right? I mean, right now you had mentioned football to sell, but nowhere in that statement did you ever say, I was a Giants fan or any football player.
Well, ironically, I'm a Jet fan that PC's Brady. So I started watching baseball in 83, started collecting and opening packs of baseball cards in 83, Dodgers. Football came a few years later, and I picked the Jets in 1985, and then the Giants won 2 Super Bowls in the next 5 years. So that's kind of my curse of football.
Yeah.
I'm a Jet fan, but I don't have the same passion. They sort of did that to me.
Yeah. They do that to a lot of people, I think. So we're getting ready for the show, right? I know you and I have had, you've asked me a number of questions, but overall, what are your expectations going in? Like, in your mind, this show is tomorrow. You're getting ready. You've packed the car up already, like most of us have done on a Friday night, right? You packed the car up and you're ready to go. So in your mind, your expectations for tomorrow.
Well, first off, until you do it and do it right, which I'm trying to do, which is, labeling and pricing and researching every card, knowing exactly what you are asking and what the minimum price you would take, and organizing, getting a poster board with your logo on it behind you, and borrowing an easel, and all the things considered to do it right. I have earned a immense amount of respect that do this regularly. I've already said I'm not doing this again. I love it, and it was great fun to research.
But you haven't even done it yet. You can't say never. You haven't even done it yet.
True. But the work, I've garnered a lot of respect. So what am I expecting? I'm expecting people to come and appreciate what I have to offer. I have a very diverse inventory ready for sale. A lot of sports, some non-sports, modern, vintage, a good mix of raw and graded. So I think I have what people are looking for. With the predominance is probably modern day football. The reality, I'm sure there's going to be folks in anticipation. What you want is probably not what you're going to get in terms of price. So that for me is going to be the biggest adjustment. Learning how to say no or counter. I mean, I do this in business, but this is a little different. So those are my expectations. I'm looking forward to a good day, but I think I have accumulated the right inventory, the right mix of cards that folks are looking for. I hope. If not, I said to my father, I said, if not, I might need a new hobby.
Well, I mean, I know I see you at every show, right? Probably every New York show, every New Jersey show, Southern Connecticut shows. So, I mean, I know deep down, I know you know the shows. I mean, I know you know what sells, and even the negotiation part. I mean, if you've been at, even doesn't matter what side of the table you've been at, you hear the negotiations going on, and and you're making offers on cards, right? So you're negotiating from the other side. So, I mean, if I was to say you were to say to me, I don't know what percentage, I'd be like, well, you're on the other side of the table. You know what you want to pay,
Right.
right? I mean, as a collector, when you're showing up and the percentages, whether it's 85 or 90 or 92 or 95 or maybe 100% or maybe 100, it doesn't, because you generally know what dealers accept, right? So you've been there, you've talked to people. So when you get to the other side of the table, and one of the things I used to do is you pick up those lines. Like, people used to come up and say things to me, and I'd be like, "Well, that's a good line," and I'd save that line. In the next show, I'd go and try to use that line. Like like stealing people's lines. But I mean, just being out there. I mean, you learn. I don't think there's that big of a difference. And I know you're nervous, and we're going to get to your worries, but I don't think there's that big of a difference being on this side of the table or that side of the table. I mean, except for this side of the table costs more money, and there was a lot more preparation than getting up at 8 in the morning and throwing some cards in a backpack and running off to a show, right?
Yeah, you're right. Look, I have experience at shows. I didn't start this post COVID, so
Yeah.
I know what the interactions are with dealers, and we're just hoping for a lot of good flow
Yeah.
at the show. I remember seeing you at the last show that the Chelsea Piers Expo was. The expo was at the Chelsea Piers, so I think that's a little bit of nerves, is hoping we're going to get a good flow. I think last time there was some oil spill on the highway, and that took
The fire, the bridge,
the
the
bridge
fire shut
something.
the highway down. Yeah.
This is week 2 of the NFL, so I'm sure tomorrow's going to be busier than Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always say, one of the things, and I haven't said it in a long time, one of the things I used to say all the time is know the show, right? Know the show. And once you get to a show and you set up at a show, you get to know the show. And you had said to me, hey, what time are you planning on being there? Like, for setup, right? So immediately I know this show, because I did this show last time. I know like most of the big deals happened almost before the show even opened. Right. And it wasn't other dealers. Of course, other dealers like myself are running around, but there were a lot of other people coming in, buying in bulk, that were getting it, that got in a little early, got in at that, the early bird or whatever. And we're just buying bulk from people.
Well,
And
isn't that the dream scenario? A repacker comes in and says, "I'll give you whatever X for."
well, whatever an X is the dream scenario. So whatever X is there, that could be, it could be a home run or it could be a strikeout, but whatever X is, yes.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
long does it take you generally to set up a booth?
Well, for me, I've got it down. I've simplified it. I would say 30 minutes tops. I've set up my whole area. I can say when I first started setting up, I needed over an hour to set everything. I had so much stuff. I was putting shelves and this and that. And I realized, too much was too much. Like, sometimes less was better. More wasn't as good. And I think, and I talked about this on a number of episodes, even with cards, like, I've learned not to overload my showcase, because I think people miss cards. So I spread them out. So I make it really easy to identify all the cards, and I put the overflow in boxes, like, discount boxes or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you're already ahead of me. I mean, I see Homer behind you, and I don't know if you want a quick explanation of the card, and who's on the card.
Yeah, well, we had a cockapoo through for 16 and a half years, and he passed away early in COVID. So I was already on eBay and Instagram, and I switched everything over from our original account to Homer Sports Cards, sort of as a way to honor him. He was my buddy, and we've since gotten a new dog, which has worked out, but sort of keeps his name alive. And sometimes it's awkward. People at shows think my name's Homer, my name's Jonathan. But I am a huge Simpsons fan, ironically, which is why we named Homer.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at my Instagram account, you'll see a bunch of Simpsons PC. So that is also a special PC of mine. I picked up this year at the National, a cast signed picture from The Simpsons, which is cool. So it was originally from my love of The Simpsons, and he was a great dog for a very long time. We had him in the city and then moved out to the burbs. And my son designed that logo, and
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And you know what?
Brand awareness.
People are going to find you.
Yeah, they'll I think recognize me. We have a nice following on Instagram. We did it organically, meeting people, selling on eBay, buying from people, wherever it is, whatnot. So we do have a nice following, and we post every once in a while some of our finds. We had been posting our sales on eBay, but I've pulled back on eBay because I wanted to get ready for the show. So a lot of things that were either on eBay or headed to eBay have not really seen that. And I do want to add, a lot of the inventory, I mentioned this in a post, has not been on a show floor. It's been in my house for 40 years. So there will be things on the floor that people haven't seen, some numbered patches, whatnot. So I'm excited to showcase some different stuff.
Yeah. I've always found at the shows when the new dealer is setting up, a lot of times at a more of a local show. This is a little bit bigger show. So people know people, and I know you know a lot of people, but at the smaller shows, the other dealers could identify quickly the new dealer, and he becomes the most popular guy just for the reason you're saying, because usually they're pulling cards out of their PC or out of the closets that haven't seen the light of day in 10, 20, 30 years. And these are the cards people want to pounce all over, and get. So we'll see. Like you're setting, most of us, including myself, we started at the little local show, 30, 40 tables, and then worked our way up to the, I don't know, what is this show? Like 250, 250?
It's more. I think George said it was 270, 275 a week ago. Yeah. So we could be touching 300. I think he's going to do well.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's plenty of room. That's a really nice place to have a show. So you may get lost a little bit, right? People may not realize that you're as new, the new guy on the block, as you were setting up at a local show.
Well, that's good. I'm not looking to get taken advantage of.
So what are your worries, concerns, like getting ready? Yeah, I know you're worried. I know you're concerned, and what are you thinking?
So I have over prepared for this show. So my nerves have calmed a little bit, but I guess, the lowballing, some of these cards were in my PC for a while. So I wouldn't say I'm one to get offended easily, but someone offers 50%. What do you say back to them? What happens if a card is in near mint or mint condition, but there's a slight ding, it's not going to gem, and someone wants to return it? What's your return policy? What do you do in those scenarios? So kind of those kind of exchanges that I haven't necessarily experienced, but I imagine others have at shows.
Yeah. I want to say, I think it was probably my second show I set up at, a guy had come over and he was buying, I was the new guy. He was buying, and making offers and buy this card, buy that card, and he left, and, he was with his friends. Oh, I got this for this price. Like, he was excited with this thing. And it was, towards the end of the show, and it was very busy. I'm dealing with people. He's standing behind me with his arms crossed, holding a card in his hand. And it was a graded card. It was a Brady. I remember it was a Brady. It was a graded card. And he said, you charge. And then he said, I need to talk to you. I said, no, I in a minute, like, let me deal with these people. So he waited a minute, and he was like, I need to talk to you. He goes, you sold me this card, and it's not what you sold me. And I said, well, wait, you made me offers on the card. Like you looked it up. You knew what the card was. I didn't tell you it was anything. Oh, I thought it was a refractor. This is not a refractor. This card's not worth what I paid for it. I need my money back. So he's being kind of
Yeah,
belligerent
how do you
about it.
handle buyer's remorse?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I was kind of by myself at the time. It was my second show setting up. And I'm like, you know what? Put the card there. Let me deal with these people and I'll take care of you. So he put the card down and he left. And then he came back at the end and I just gave him his money back. I'm like, here, just take your money. I'm not going to. But then when I told other people about it and then I talked about it on the podcast, people are like, that's insane. Like you don't return a card at a card show. Once you buy that card, you own it. You don't go back and start asking for your money back type of thing. And I've never seen that happen ever. In in all my time of setting up now, all these shows that I set up with, all my time in the hobby, I've never ever seen anybody come back and try. It happened, and I should say it happened to me twice. It happened to me once in Chantilly, where the guy bought it and he came back and he wanted to sell it back to me. He didn't want to return it. He wanted to sell it back to me for what he paid for it. And at that time, I didn't want the card back. I was here to sell it. I didn't want it,
Yeah.
But besides that, I mean, you don't return cards.
Well, I know that's bad form, but I don't,
yeah,
hobby's
yeah.
got quite bigger. There's new entrants to the hobby. So I don't know if everybody etiquette that,
Yeah. Hey, we've all bought cards. We've all made mistakes. We've all gotten home or we've realized after the fact, I paid too much for this card. I shouldn't have done it. We accept that. We made a mistake. We're going to learn from the lesson and we're going to move on. Right? We're not going to run back and start blaming it on the person we bought it from. Right? That person didn't pull the money out of our pocket. We took the money out of our pocket and paid them for it. Right? So it's our own fault. Right? For whatever reason, it's our fault. We did it. And there's we've all done it. We've all been there. And even selling something, when we've sold something and then realized, oh, I probably could have, should have sold that card was worth more. I made a mistake, or I should have asked for more on that card or something. But I don't go chase them down and say, wait a minute, come back. You have to pay me more money. It's just, that's not going to happen. So, I mean, lowballing, I can see that, but you've been at shows, you see that, right? You see the negotiation happen. People are always going to lowball, and I'll tell you, there's a generation out there. No matter what you say, even if you think it's a good deal, they're going to come back lower. So it doesn't matter if the card's worth 100 and you say you'll do 60. They'll be like, well, you take 50. It's just like they have to say it's just part of who they are, I think. But
yeah, and I'm sure I've had this feeling before, but I do wonder sometimes. Everyone loves the hobby and loves the cards, but sometimes you're addicted to the deal. I want to get a good deal, and that's prevalent through the show floor. Hear it. So
yeah, well, that's really in what I think too. That really becomes in flipping the card, because the better the deal you can get, the more you can make on the when it comes time to sell the card. It's truly nice, and you'll see that. You'll find a few collectors that'll show up tomorrow that'll see some of these patch cards or whatever, that you'll know that truly appreciate those cards. Right. And there's going to be a couple cards. I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a couple cards in your case that you're going to put out for sale, and people are going to start making offers on it. And you're going to start saying no. And then you're going to start thinking, do I really want to sell this card? Like, maybe I want to keep this card instead. And you might even reach in the case and take it and put it back in your backpack. Right. And just say, no, I'm not going to sell this card today.
those might be the first week NFL disappointments or injuries, and I'm not taking cents on a dollar for Puka Naku. We'll be back in 4 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is going to air after the weekend, but I was pricing my cards, and we talked. I priced my cards yesterday, right? And I priced all my Twoa cards, and then I watched the game last night. I'm like, oh my god, how could you do this to me?
Well, it could happen the flip side. I was pricing last night as well, and my son came down and said, James Cook just scored his third touchdown. I said, well, that Hyper Prism rookie's just going to be a little more expensive.
Yeah. I got to pull it out and put a higher price tag on it. Yeah. And there was another card you had showed me that you had picked. Oh, Likely, the guy who scored all that. Yeah.
I'm bringing 2 orange numbered Likely rookies.
Yeah.
And if they don't sell, they'll go to PSA. Excuse me.
Yeah. They can give you an 8.
Well, you know, you'll get 1-7 out of the.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
So you got a lot of football tomorrow. You've got your stand there. You got Homer on the stand behind you. You're going to have that set up. You're I know I offered you some cases, but you're getting some cases from George, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have slabs in 2 cases, raw higher end to middle end in another case, and then other stuff. Not really vintage, 80s fun rip packs, 88 Donruss, 90 score, that kind of stuff, hockey packs from the early 90s, cheap packs that people can open and rip. And then the $5 boxes, every card $5, no breaks, straight $5. And then the $2 boxes, where ultimately the deal is if you want 9 cards for $10, that's what I'm going to drive. So it's $2 for 1 card, $5 for 3 cards. But I really want people to just take the inventory. So 9 cards for $10. So if you buy $10 worth of cards, it ultimately almost gets you down to $1 a card.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to move some inventory in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said you have a box of $5 cards that they're all $5.
Yeah, that's straight $5.
But you know, people are going to pull 4 out and try to get them for 15, right?
At 9:01, that might not work. At 4:00, that probably will work.
Yeah. 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 What time are you getting there in the morning?
So I think the biggest question is how am I going to get my son out of bed early enough?
Is he coming with you? He's going to come down and.
He wants to set up. Oh yeah, he's going to be in charge of the 5s and the 1s.
Oh, this is a good experience. This is new. I didn't know this.
I give him full. He gets 100% profit of the 5s and the $1 boxes. He can get that, and then I needed 2 other. I need another set of eyes. There's a lot going on.
Yep.
So he's going to be there Saturday. I'll be set up alone Sunday. We're probably going to get there around 7:30. Hour and a half to set up. I've done my thinking. It'll be good. So
yeah. I like to get there early. I like to set up, and then I like to, go walk around. More like I used to go walk around and shop, but now I would shop if I like this my PC things. If I find anything with the women's basketball stuff like that, I like to go look quick to see if there's any of that. Then I just like to go talk to people. Go see whoever and hang out and see what's good with everybody.
I think I'll probably do that more likely Sunday when I don't have to wake up a teenager at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah. All right, man. So this is it, right? We're gonna leave it here, and when we speak again on here, it's gonna be after the show, and we're gonna see how well it went.
I'm excited. I can't answer all my questions for the last few weeks. I'm sure I've been a bit of a pain at times, but thank you, and thanks for having me today.
Yeah. Any last minute questions before they're gonna make you sleep a little better tonight?
Well, I guess one last question would be of all the people that generally come. I'm a stats guy. I run a research team for a living. Of all the people that come to your table, what percentage would you say are true collectors versus the investor flipper type? Is it 50-50? Is it 80-20 in the investor flipper type?
Yeah, you could keep going up. It's like 95-5 maybe.
Okay.
There's most of these shows there's and I'm not going to say they're not collectors, right? They're collectors of something.
Right.
And then I'm sure they are in the hobby and they have a PC. And I don't want to say everybody that shows up, nobody's a collector, but people that are coming to buy, especially modern football, which I sell, not many people are coming to buy for their PC. They're coming to flip that stuff. They're coming to buy that, to move that. And it really, like, I bring it upon myself, right? It has to do with my inventory, what I'm putting out there. I don't put out stuff that, like in the big cases that, it's all modern football that people are going to buy and say, I really want to keep this for my PC. But I do have some WNBA. I have some women's soccer stuff that could be PC stuff. Like, I don't people aren't buying that stuff to flip that stuff. So when they come in and buy, some Caitlin Clarks or Angel Reese or Trinity Rodman, Sophia Smith, something like that, right? They're not going to flip those cards. They're taking those cards home because they want to. And I know that your patch cards from 20 or 30 years ago that you put out there, that'll probably be a collector that's going to be excited to get their hands on that, right? So my experience is going to be different than most other people just because of what my inventory is.
95.5. All right. It was. Yeah. It's good to know the mix of folks that you'll be seeing.
Yeah. All right, man. Good luck. Well, good luck. I'm going to be right there next to you tomorrow. I'll be there to answer even more questions. But all right.
Early.
We'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you. All right, we're back. Sunday night. We spent the last 2 days at the show, the Northeast Sports Card Expo?
I think Northeast Expo.
Right? Northeast Expo. So we spent 2 days. You think I'd know it by now, right? So we spent 2 days at the show at Chelsea Piers in Stamford, Connecticut, and we're going to go over the whole review of the show. But I just want to, just throw this over to you and just talk a little bit about, this was your first time setting up and your son came with you and set up. So just kind of talk about that experience. And I know you had said to me, I want to do this one time, right? But now that he's done it with you, is it something that, you guys said, hey, maybe we can do this again?
Yeah, it was much better than expected, much easier than expected. But I think that was the show, the load in, the setup, the show itself was kind of comfortable, in a nice room. The load in was direct, so everything kind of was easy.
Because you're comparing that to the other shows you did, right?
Well, easy for me. We pulled up, pulled our stuff. There wasn't much strain on that. So the transition to do it was easy. So getting him up was not difficult. He was motivated by money. Let me be honest with you. And we both had a great time. He made money. I made money. But it was more of an experience to do it together. And I did say this would be probably the only time, but probably 3-4 sales in, I said, I kind of like this. So after the show, I did ask him. I heard that they're coming back in late April.
Yep.
And I said to my son, would you do it again? And he said, I would definitely do it again. So I would say there's a pretty good shot we'll do it again, several months down the line.
Nice. And I think too, if you spread it out like that, it gives you such a long time to prepare. Like for someone like me who's doing shows almost every weekend, there's not a lot of time to prepare. Like I'm always, I feel like sometimes it's like always looking ahead. Like I need inventory and I talk about this all the time. I can't buy inventory today for next week. Right. I just can't do it because there's not enough margins in it. So in your situation, saying they're doing another show in April, right? I mean, this is giving you all like a lot of time to, hand pick, because now you've experienced, your first show and you kind of
handle it.
Yeah. And you kind of know what people were looking for, right? A little bit.
I do, and while I did sell a fair amount of cards, I have plenty left to sell. So I don't think inventory will be an issue in the near future. But it was fun, and shout out to George. He's a great promoter. There were certainly things that any show can do better or learn from, which I think he does. But he makes it really easy, I think, on the dealers. I know we've commented on some different things. We'll probably get into the placement of where we were and whatnot, but for what it's worth, I think they run a really good show. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you can tell they put the work in, and that's all you ask for a promoter is, and I'm saying that because I've been doing this for a long time, and you ask for them to really put, really think of the dealer when they're putting this all together, and not just worry about just selling the tables, but creating an experience that's going to bring people in, so you have a card show and people are going to come to the card show, but now you want to bring in guests, right? You want to bring in people that are signing things that's going to bring other people into this experience, because there's some people that are just going to show up with a bat in their hand or a hockey stick, and they're going to buy the ticket and they're going to go have it autographed and they're going to leave. But other people will be like, hey, let's go early, let's walk around, let's look. And so it changes the environment. So you really, I mean, I think for a promoter, you ask them to really look out, for everybody there, right? To make it to do as much advertising, bring as many people in for more than just the cars, for as any experience you can bring them into, and give them an easy access, right? A place that's right off the highway. It's easy to get to. That parking is good. It's easy to get in and out. Like all those, that whole place is just a good experience for a show.
yeah, food, drink, and but parking is key. It was very easy to get in and out of there. So
And I do want to say it's one of my places I like about loading in and load. I think the load in and load out is very easy there.
yeah,
'Cause a lot of times if you're parking in a parking garage, right? I mean, you've got a long walk to a parking garage, or if you're parking your car somewhere else and you've got to go get your car and drive it back to the door and then unload and load and stuff. So yeah, that's definitely one of the places I like the most about, loading in and loading out. So you were right.
well, yeah, I have nothing to compare it to, but I just know that what going in, I had no real understanding of what that would be, because it could be the worst scenario you've experienced, or it was
Yep.
that, and it was just easy.
Yeah.
We loaded it in and we moved the car, and that was it. It was done.
Yep.
Great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, so let's just start with your overall, like a rating, like rating your experience, and then just get into like were you over prepared? Were you under prepared? Did you feel like you were the new guy on the block?
Well, that was pretty clear, from the moment when I was setting up and I sort of asked the dealer to give me 5 minutes because I still needed to figure things out. So yeah, I was the new kid, but I think I picked it up pretty quickly. But I don't know. I think for me it was a seamless transition. I think having you guys next to me, so kind of looking after the area, and kind of seeing how the setup was done, I kind of echoed that. But I think it was a pretty easy transition.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got the gift of gab too, right? So everybody that came up, you just started a conversation with them, which, believe it or not, is probably half the battle, right? Half the battle of setting up as a dealer, like being able, and people will say, like, there's other dealers that will sit there and never say anything. But I think if you get up and you talk to people and you make people feel comfortable, right? It changes a lot that happens at that table.
Yeah, I think I've learned a lot as a collector and a show attendee, and we all know some of dealers that get into their ways or whatnot, and you'll pass and maybe they'll acknowledge you, maybe they won't. And I did want to communicate, and it was my first show, so I wanted to make it something different and experience it.
Mhm.
I'm sure a lot of people heard that it was my first show because I wanted to tell people that I wanted to have a conversation. Look, this was the first show that I've ever not bought a card, so I was behind the table for 95% of the time.
Yeah.
So I was trying to make deals, but having conversations. I had a few long conversations that extended into deals. Um, Ran into a guy that lives in my town. He ended up buying a few cards. It was great, and just at 30 minutes away from the venue. So I did enjoy that part of it. I wasn't trying to push any brand or agenda, but just kind of have a good day and
Yeah.
see, see
So
what.
what were you most surprised at?
Um, I did sell my big cards. I specialized in the 30 to 300 range, and I think the 5 cards I brought above that all sold, which was a good thing. One to a friend I know. So I would say that. And the second thing is, if you do the value boxes right and you put pretty good cards in there, and there's a value opportunity, those go. And I did very well on this kind of nine cards for $10. But it was almost $2 if it was much less. So people wanted the 9 cards for $10. I did well with the $5 cards. So I turned those over after the first day. So some of the less expensive stuff too was moving. No hockey, very little hockey movement, until one Ranger fan took a couple Kreiders off of my hands, which was a nice trade, I think, for both of us. Actually, a Kreider and a Lafreniere, which was nice. But for the most part, there was little interest in hockey, little interest in baseball, and basketball a little bit. It was mostly football and modern football.
Yeah,
I think that, I guess, would be expected.
So let me ask you this, and I know this is a situation that new dealers, seasoned dealers, that we all go through this, and I know it happened to you because I put you in that position, right? So you're setting up, you're getting ready, the show hasn't opened yet, and you got your cards in your case, and your biggest card in your case, someone comes by to buy, right? And now you had your sheets, right? You had your papers, and you knew what your prices were, and you sold that big card before the show even started. And I could see the look on your face. I could see it because I've been there. I've been through this, and this is like, you try to tell this to people and they don't understand, but that weighs on your mind probably the whole day.
Yeah.
And you could tell me how long it's weighed on your mind, right? But you sell that card and you're like, should I have sold it so soon? Should I have asked for more? Should I have held on to that card? But then is there that little piece that said, I made my first deal. It was, the bigger card. So everything else is going to be easier from here on in.
Well, it was both of those things. So to be completely honest, if it was my second show, that wouldn't have been the deal. It was my first trade. It was kind of a weight that lifted because it was a nice trade, right?
Yep.
Combination of 2 cards. Had that been an hour later, it would have been a different deal. I needed some confidence. So I think in some respects, it was okay that it happened. It was, I'm not just fine,
Yeah.
But it did take a little bit of a edge off, but that deal wouldn't have happened a couple hours later. Yeah.
I don't know. I think I paid strong on those cards.
So just based on what people were looking at, there were people wanted high-end modern football without paying thousands. Yeah. And I think it was kind of in a nice sweet spot for someone to, it wasn't a $3,000 card, right? But it wasn't $100 either. So it sort of hit in the sweet spot that I think I was, between the two downtowns I sold, the Magic Bird, there was like that 500 to 1,000 kind of grouping that I think.
So in your sheets you had these printed out sheets that you had a spreadsheet, you printed it out and you made it big. I mean, it was big. And you had your bottom line price, like on some of those.
Yeah.
How many times did you get to the bottom line? Did you say, like, if people said, hey, what's the best you can do on this? I don't know what you had on that sheet. Did you have 3 prices on that sheet? Did you give them your bottom line, or was it your second to the last line? I'm not sure what your pricing was.
So I had 3 prices on the sheet. It was what I paid for it, which still came into, part of the calculus.
Yep.
the asking price, which was on the sticker, and then the min price. Very few times did I go below the min price. Not many times was it a hit right off, but I would generally have the asking price, and then they would say, "What's the best you can do?" And I would say, "Well, how about this?" And it doesn't necessarily have to be the minimum. I don't have to say the minimum right away.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if I see them waffling, I might lower it, an etch further. But yeah, very few times did I go below the min. People were paying. The crowd wasn't deep, but they did have deep pockets. So that was good.
Interesting. Yeah, that you viewed it that way.
I don't know personally, but
Yeah. I mean, I felt, with that show, I felt that a lot of flippers, like a lot of people, and they were just very verbal saying, I need to be into this card better because I'm going to be selling this card within a day, within an hour, maybe 5 minutes, a day, a week. Like you could tell.
yeah.
You could tell. And then sometimes you say, okay, does it make sense to move that card? How well are you into that card for? But there was, I think people were just looking at those last comps. They were starting at 80, 85%, and it was tough to get them to 90% on cards.
I got a lot of that Sunday, maybe more Sunday, but it got dead Sunday, middle of the day. And then I got a little bit of a wave at the end, which was surprising. So I don't know. I just stuck it out. It was my first time, and I figured.
Did you stay all the way till 4 o'clock?
Every inch of it. What?
Did you stay all the way till 4 o'clock?
Pretty much 3:30. Yeah, 4, maybe even 4. Yeah. I was packing up. I was getting ready to pack up, and then some things popped, and I said, "You know what? All right, stick around."
Nice. Yeah. I had no action. We had no action on Sunday. I gave more away on Sunday than I actually sold. So
I gave a fair amount of stuff away to kids. I was happy to do it, and I did packs, $2 cards, whatever, a lot of that stuff. I was happy to. Need to make some room.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of that, the women's soccer stuff, and when I see these young girls come by, and I'm happy to give them a few cards, and hopefully
I would have thought maybe we were on a soccer pitch. Maybe I thought maybe there would be a little more soccer.
And that's another thing about that place. It's like, there's everything going on. There's a hockey rink and pool and basketball courts, and that venue down there, it's quite impressive. If you walk out, you go walk around outside of what the show is. So you would think too, the promoter puts the show there because there's going to be a lot of young kids in there, at some type of a sport practice on a Saturday and a Sunday.
There were a lot of kids there.
Yeah.
What were your impressions of the show?
It was the second time I did the show. I've learned something about that show, that the first time I was set up on the other side. So the room is kind of split in two. So the first time I was set up were the entrance on that side of the room, and did very well. There were times that I, was sitting there thinking to myself, where are all the people at? And then I would kind of look throughout the room and say, there's a lot of people in this room. But I just think for whatever reason, we were set up with Rich Whittlebug Cards is on the other side of me. And today we were just noticing, we would watch people walk in. They would look like they were coming right to our row. And then there was like an invisible wall. They would turn and go up the middle of the, and it took people a long time to make their way to where we were set up. And for whatever reason, it works out that way. It shows, right? You never know what the reason is for anything that really happens. And here's another thing, and I understand it, is on Saturday, it's 85 degrees, it's sunny, right? It's a beautiful day out. It's hard to get people that
September.
What's that?
not the norm for mid-September, a beach day.
Yeah. And, it's hard to get people to want to, have them come inside. And then Sundays in the fall are always tough because of football season.
Yeah.
And we've got, the Giants, Jets, and baseball, right? Baseball is still in season right now. So there's just a lot of stuff going on. And again, today was another day. It was like 80 degrees or 85 degrees. It was sunny out. I left an hour early. I left at 3, but I think, when I was leaving, the load in and load out there was a lot of people out there, packing up to go. So I didn't feel like I was abandoning the show by any means.
No, me and Rich and I might have been the last two out there, still working our magic, but
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm the one that always says too, I think that, you can get big deals done on late at the end of a show. And I've seen it happen all the time, but I just didn't feel that.
well, talking about late in the show, I'd like to pour a little bit out for the guy that bought my Cooper Cup rookie card. I know he got injured later after the sale. I am sorry, I've been there before, but it was a good trade. We both wanted it.
Yeah.
But
So were you surprised? I mean, I know you talked about hockey. Were you surprised that you went home with cards that you went with? Because this happens to me all the time. I'll be getting ready for a show. I'll be like, this will be the first card. Like, people are going to be fighting over this card. Like, I'm going to have to fend people off and ask full price. And then all of a sudden, nobody ever asked about the card. And I go home and I'm like, what happened? How come nobody wanted this card? Did you have any of those cards in your case?
I thought I sold a good amount of modern football. I thought I was going to come home with a lot less modern football. I'm not complaining, but I thought the Jameer Gibbs, the Bijans. But I think the deal is everybody wants to do the same thing. They wanted it raw and gem condition so they can grade and they can flip. I already got the 10s. The 10s are on the table and they don't want them. So
Yeah.
I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah. And it's an ever changing landscape with that. It goes from everybody wants the graded cards to everybody wants the raw cards, back to the graded cards. Yeah. And it's like, the ebb and flow of the hobby, right?
Yeah. But so there were two cards that were my case because I divided to football and pretty much everything else. I had two cases, as you know. And there were two cards that came out maybe 7 or 8 times and no one bought them. And I kept thinking someone's going to take these. And within the last 2 hours, they both got sold. It was a Tyrese Maxey rookie, a Blue Wave, and a Dalton Kincaid.
Oh, you did sell that the Dalton Kincaid. Yeah.
So, I kind of felt that the amount of times people were looking at it obviously increased the percentages that someone's going to buy it. Unless they're all looking at it and seeing the same defect. But at some point, those were going to sell, and they both did it late. So that was good.
So interestingly enough, when I looked at some of the cards in your case, I felt to myself that people aren't going to buy these to flip these cards because there's certain cards that just aren't real liquid, right? They're not cards that everybody wants, but somebody's going to come in and buy the card that they're going to maybe buy it and hold on to. And I felt that Dalton Kincaid was one of those cards. It had, and even the first morning, the other the Lamar Jackson and the
Mark Andrews, yeah,
Mark Andrews, that
was yeah,
that had a sick patch on it, but it wasn't a rookie, right? It wasn't graded, it wasn't autographed, but it was numbered.
It was first print. It was 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
And it had the Maryland state flag. That was definitely going to go. I mean,
Yeah.
not to Bill or someone else, but
yeah. So somebody's not going to buy that and immediately throw it in their case. But somebody's going to buy it and say, "I love this card. I want to bring it home. I want to keep this."
So ironically, I did have a conversation with the guy that bought the Cooper Cup, and it is a 99. It is a rookie. It's a blue, Prism Select, and it's going to be part of his collection. He PC's Cooper Cup, so worried about an ankle injury, but so I'm at least hopefully.
It doesn't matter if it's going to be his PC, right? I mean, that's
guilty. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the way it goes. I mean, kind of the biggest, I don't want to say joke because it's a serious thing, right? But the biggest thing were the Tua cards that everybody had in their case, right? And
Yeah.
people took the prices off. People said make offers on them, things like that. So, I mean, here's people like I'm just gonna dump these cards or just try to get rid of these cards, right? Versus if somebody really PC'd the person, right? Then they don't. I mean, they're gonna care that their player may never come back and play the sport again, but they're not gonna be worried. They're not there to try to flip those cards, right? So I can't imagine any Tua cards sold, this weekend because most of the people, they're in there trying to buy and flip cards.
Yeah, a few of them came to the table for sure.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
The most predictable
Yeah.
thing you.
So, um, positives we've kind of gone over. What any negatives? Anything you take away saying that I didn't think this, or I didn't think this would happen, or this is kind of to me is was a turn off or just a negative.
What was really confusing was for me, the Wi-Fi was great on Saturday and horrendous on Sunday. And I don't know what changed. And I don't know if it was just me on Saturday and me on Sunday with my plus and minuses, but it didn't work on Sunday. And it worked for me on Saturday. So that was an encumbrance.
Mm. Yeah. You went to I'm trying to think of what national it was that I was at.
Atlantic City, Chicago, Cleveland. Yeah, I've been to a few of them.
Yeah, I think it was Atlantic City was where I think that was where the internet was terrible in AC. And it's tough. I mean, it's tough because if and I always say this all the time, you always know, and on the other side because you spend a lot of time on the other side of the table. If the Wi-Fi goes down or something, and
You better know
the prices, then you can do well, right? Because nobody could be looking up the last 3 comps or when this last one sold or.
Well, I feel the National is like a commuter train. There's so many people. I understand almost that slowdown in technology, but as you know, there wasn't enough people to slow down the technology this weekend. It's just
No.
poor.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying you have to expect that. We go because we all had. I mean, even the like the Wi-Fi, I couldn't make a phone call.
Right.
I could use the Wi-Fi to go and comp a card, which is very slow. But I had to go walk outside if I needed to make a phone call or receive messages.
Yeah.
I had to take a walk out just to walk outside with my phone to get some messages and I did get the stuff that I didn't know I had missed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which always makes it difficult. So yeah, that would definitely be a negative. Any other negatives?
Well, wouldn't you have thought, because we were in the front we were in a sort of in a front area near the autographs. Wouldn't you have thought that would have been a good area? Now we saw the traffic going down the middle the way it was, but I thought being close to the autographs, I thought it was good, but maybe because they weren't such big draws, people kind of gave that area the Heisman. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that I had, and I don't even know how true it is or not, right? So when you came in to the show and you walked forward through, in front of the whole first section, as you got beyond that, there were a number of tables with guys that just had, like a bunch of stuff spread across the tables. We really didn't have cards, right?
Yeah.
That they had memorabilia and stuff like that. What's that?
Wasn't appealing.
Well, it's not that it wasn't appealing, but people go to a card show. A lot of times people want to go look in cases. And one of the thoughts I had was maybe they just felt that this was kind of that kind of section, right?
Yeah.
Just with the memorabilia, not much cards, and they kind of just turned away from it. Just kind of flowed away from that section because I knew other people that were set up over there that were to the left of that, the most left of that, and they said they hardly got people there at all, both Saturday and Sunday. So their traffic was terrible over there. People really just weren't making it over there, and I heard people complain about that at the show I did last time, but if you go back and listen, I raved about this show because where I was set up, we had lots of traffic. I mean, I was busy all day. I never had time to rest, and it was a completely different experience. 200 feet away. Set up just a little bit away. And I know they say, if the people are eventually going to make it to your thing. But I would see people come in, or I knew there were people there. I would go find them and say, "Hey, come over here." Like this is where I'm set up because they couldn't find me.
I did notice a few people that said they're going to come back, and I don't think they ever made it back.
Nah, you can't. Nobody ever comes back. If they don't make the sale, then they don't. Yeah. I mean, even like with me with the Caitlin Clark cards, right? Very few people had, women's basketball Caitlin Clark card, like not like the spread that I had anyways. And they, looked over them all and got all the prices and said, all right, I'm going to go around the room. And if I don't find anything else, I'll be back. I'm like, okay. Yeah. they don't come back, but that's okay.
So what are you thinking? Would you do this again in late April when they come back?
Yes. And I would also request, I'm giving it up now, right? Everybody will request the same thing. I'd also request to be on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
Versus the side of the room that I was on. That would be my request. My only request. I like the show. I think it's in a good area. And I'll tell you another thing. When I did the show, and I think you may remember this too, in last April, because I know you were there. I remember seeing you at that show. It brought a lot of people from New York. I saw a lot of people from New York and New Jersey were at that show in April, and they were there at that show before the doors even opened. They were in that show very early, and I didn't see any of those people from New York and New Jersey this weekend.
Quiet too. It was very quiet that first half hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was April. Guess what? Sport's not played in April. It'll be a different show, different crowd.
And April too, people are starting to get excited for the national.
Yep.
That's like the month where people are starting to, it's kind of that snowball that they make and just kind of getting it going, just give that little push, right? To get it to start rolling. And I think that April is that time. Yeah. So you'll do it again? How about you? Will you do this show again in April?
Yeah, I think I'll run it back in April.
Yeah. It's a good show. We're blessed that like I say that I'm blessed. You don't live in Connecticut. I do. I'm blessed. I live in Connecticut, and there's so many shows within an hour that I could drive to and set up at. But 2-day shows,
it's tough.
It is tiring. It's real. Yeah. I mean, you hear me talk about it all the time, right? But now you've experienced it, and here it is Sunday night, and you're like, Ken, we need to get this done because I am tired.
Another level of respect. So definitely another level of respect for the setup, and then for the full going through with it. But he was okay. He understood the crowd was getting lighter, so things broke down a little early. It wasn't a full 2 days, but yeah. And I think I said this to you earlier. I don't think I'm in line for 5 days of the national anytime soon.
Yeah, that's a whole. You have to worry. You have to get into shape for that. I mean, you got to prepare. Well, it's like a month. It's like a month-long preparation to get ready for that. Yeah, just to be on your feet. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience. I know a lot of people reach out to me and say, hey, I'm setting up my show for the first time. Do you have any tips or anything? And, I think it's different for every single person that I say it to. And because there's just so many things, and it's nice to bring, you on that, your first time doing it and how you experience it. And
yeah,
I want you to, give out how people can get in touch with you, because there's going to be other first timers that are going to do this, and they're probably going to say, let me reach out to him and ask him, this or that, something maybe I didn't even think to ask because I'm so, oblivious to, because I'm doing this so much weekend after weekend. So tell people where they can reach out if they have any questions or just want to say hello.
Yeah, so my Instagram account is where it would be great. Homer Sports Cards. So it's HOMERS, Homers, and then Sports Cards. Homer Sports Cards at Instagram. The logo's in the back, as you can see. But I'll tell them the same thing I'll say now is just the more you prepare before, the easier the show is. So if you can be a little detailed leading up to the show and do it right, then it'll be a fun time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all those little things, right? It's not the big things. It's all those little things.
Look, it comes down to research, labeling, and, you know, pricing and labeling. So
yeah, preparation.
preparation.
Even all the way down to know how much change to have.
Well, I had a lot of change.
Yeah.
If anybody wants, you know, I'm probably going to load up my eBay with some of the stuff that didn't sell at the show. So the same handle, Homer Sports Cards. In the next couple of weeks, I think I'm gonna. Once I get some sleep, I'm gonna find some time to load up some cards.
Look at you getting sales going.
Try.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.